Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Al24 Nightly News, and here are your top stories. First, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has informed Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan about the efforts undertaken by Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to resolve the crisis caused by the unconstitutional change in Niger. Gabon's ousted President Ali Bongo is free to move about and pursue medical treatment abroad, military leaders said today. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived Wednesday to Kiev. The trip comes as a show of Washington's support to Ukraine. Welcome to the news. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune has appointed Mariam Ben Mouloud as High Commissioner for Digitization with the rank of Minister. A press release issued by the Algerian presidency said that the Algerian president has signed a presidential decree appointing Mariam Ben Mouloud as High Commissioner for Digitization. And Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has informed Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan about the efforts undertaken by Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to resolve the crisis caused by the unconstitutional change in Niger, as well as his efforts to encourage and consolidate the development approach in addressing the challenges besetting the countries and peoples of the continent that has become home to a lot of tension, disputes, and conflict. This came during a meeting granted by the Turkish president to the Algerian diplomacy chief at the beginning of his working visit to Ankara, entrusted by President Abdelmajid Tebboune. A communique of the foreign ministry here indicated that Mr. Attaf delivered an oral message from the Algerian president to his Turkish counterpart as part of permanent communication between the leaders of the two countries and their mutual will to strengthen relations of cooperation and partnership. In a notable development, Saïd Shengriha, the chief of staff of the Algerian army, engaged in a telephone conversation with William Joseph Burns, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. During this exchange, both sides discussed matters of mutual interest, making an important moment of security coordination. And Sahrawi President and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Ibrahim Ghali, held a series of bilateral meetings on the sideline of his participation in the African Climate Summit taking place in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. According to the Sahrawi press agency, President Ghali held meetings with Kenyan President William Ruto, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, as well as with the presidents of Rwanda, Burundi, Mozambique, Congo, and the presidents of Ethiopia, Tanzania, in addition to his meetings with the Vice President of Namibia, Vice President of Colombia, and Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The same source added that during these talks, the topics included in the Africa Climate Summit program and issues of common interest were discussed in addition to the latest developments in the Sahrawi issue at all levels. The Polisario Front has stressed that the first visit of the UN envoy to Western Sahara, Stéphane de Mistura, to the occupied territories is a result of the staunch position of the front and the struggle of the Sahrawi people, especially in the occupied Sahrawi territories. For his part, the representative of the Polisario Front in Switzerland and to the United Nations and international organizations in Geneva, Ambassador Abi Boucharaya Bashir, affirmed that the presence of the UN envoy in the occupied territories deals a serious blow to Morocco's plans. Mohamed Khatil reports.
Getting closer to see a clear picture and hearing a clear sound, far from any attempt to hide, tarnish, and falsify the facts and conceal the true sufferings of the Sahrawi people is the aim of the visit made by the UN envoy to Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, in the region. The visit is favorably welcomed by the Polisario Front as a move in favor of the struggle of the Sahrawi people and an international attempt to closely examine the situation there.
The visit of the UN envoy to the occupied territories deals a serious blow to Morocco's plan that it is promoting regarding the issue of Western Sahara and its attempt to mislead public opinion by claiming the alleged sovereignty over occupied Western Sahara.
The first contact of the UN envoy with the Sahrawis in the occupied territories was planned before this time, and according to the latest report of the Secretary General, his personal envoy was unable to visit Western Sahara in July 2022 after rejecting the conditions set by the occupying state whereby it restricted the sites to be visited and the people to be met.
This time, the occupying state had no choice but to abandon its obstructionist position, and thus, Mr. de Mistura was able to continue the mission entrusted to him by visiting occupied Western Sahara.
What is expected from de Mistura's visit is a report to be submitted to the UN Secretary General and the Security Council next October. However, the most important goal for the Polisario Front is conveying a true picture of the situation prevailing in the occupied territories and the sufferings of the people there.
And in Morocco, a groundswell of public opposition is building against the government's alliance with the Zionist entity. This discontent is set to intensify with the impending visit of the Speaker of the House of Councillor of the Knesset. Many Moroccans see this move as deeply troubling and a betrayal of the Palestinian cause. Hosam Berkan.
As Zionist action against Palestinians escalate, the Moroccan government persists in its partnership with the Zionists, despite widespread rejection among the Moroccan populace. The visit by the Speaker to the Zionist Knesset has ignited anger, and Moroccans are preparing to protest near Parliament to voice their outrage over what they perceive as their government aligning with the Zionists.
This ill-fated step is a dangerous precedent for normalization from an institution that is supposed to represent the people and adopt its position in support of Palestine, rejecting normalization. The visit of the Speaker of the Council of Advisors constitutes a legitimization of Zionist crimes and a stab in the back for the Palestinian people and the resistance.
Moroccan activists supporting the Palestinian cause consider the Speaker's visit to the Zionist entity an extension of the Moroccan government's efforts to deepen its alliance with the occupiers.
We condemn in the strongest terms this visit and all forms of official and semi-official alliance by the chorus of opportunistic traders who fawn over the regime in the name of the people. What message will the Speaker of the Council of Advisors, who does not represent the popular will, convey through his ill-fated visit?
The promotion of the Moroccan government's ties with Zionists as service to the Palestinian cause has not involved the Palestinians themselves, who have strongly denounced the chairman of the Kingdom's Council of Advisors' visit. It exposes a troubling relationship that challenges the Palestinian cause and contradicts the will of the Moroccan people, who overwhelmingly reject all forms of normalization.
And in regard with the political process in Libya, President of the High Council of State of Libya, Mohammed Takala, said that the efforts of his institution were focused on supporting the work of the 6+6 Joint Committee to reach results that are acceptable to all parties.
كانت لقاءاتي وزياراتي في الداخل والخارج.
My meetings and visits, both internally and externally, over the last days, focused on means and ways to support the efforts of the 6+6 Committee and to benefit from what it has achieved, to reach concrete and satisfactory results accepted by the parties to the political process. To this end, it's necessary to involve all the stakeholders which recognize the transition and believe in the peaceful settlement of the crisis and the establishment of the required consensus, and which provide all the guarantees for the implementation of the committee's outcomes.
وتوفير الضمانات اللازمة لإنفاذ مخرجات اللجنة سالفة.
The U.S. renewed its support for the efforts of the High Electoral Commission in Libya to prepare for comprehensive national elections in the country. U.S. Special Envoy to Libya Ambassador Richard Noland said in a tweet published by the embassy through his official account that Washington continues to support the efforts of the High National Elections Commission to prepare for the elections, adding that the USA has full confidence in its ability to conduct both national and municipal elections. The British diplomat Martin London has been appointed as UK's ambassador to Libya in succession to Caroline Harndall, who will be transferring to another diplomatic service appointment, according to the British Foreign Ministry. London will take up this appointment during October 2023, as confirms the statement of the office. Gabon's ousted President Ali Bongo is free to move about and pursue medical treatment abroad, military leaders said on Wednesday. Bongo has been detained at his official residence since he was overthrown by his presidential guard on August 30th, and then his family's 56-year rule over the oil-producing Central African nation.
The Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, CTRI, reaffirms that given his state of health, the former president of the Republic, Ali Bongo Ondimba, is free to move about. He may, if he wishes, travel abroad for medical checkups.
France's government spokesperson Olivier Véran has confirmed there were some talks between local military officials from France and Niger in order to coordinate operations on the ground. During a regular weekly news conference, Véran also reiterated France's stated position that it only regarded the elected government of President Mohamed Bazoum, currently held prisoner after a coup, as the country's legitimate leader. And the African Climate Summit has ended today with a call for world leaders to back global taxes to fund climate action adopted in the Nairobi Declaration, which also calls for financial reforms to help African countries. The emphasis of the final declaration was primarily on calling for large polluters and international financial institutions to devote more funds to help poorer countries and make it simpler for them to borrow money at reasonable rates. Here is Kenya's president.
As a continent, we have developed our common position, which encapsulates our ambition for socio-economic transformation and our climate action agenda. This position is anchored on the potential that Africa holds to decarbonize the global economy and set the stage for green industrialization throughout the world. We demand a fair playing ground for our countries to access the investment needed to unlock the potential and translate it into opportunities. We further demand a just multilateral development finance architecture to liberate our economies from odious debt and onerous barriers to necessary financial resources.
And the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres highlighted the enormous devastating effects of climate change on the African continent, despite Africa not being involved in causing the crisis. In his speech at the African Climate Summit in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, Antonio Guterres said that the largest emitters of greenhouse gases must lead the way to avoid further damage. UN Secretary General also said that G20 countries are responsible for emitting 80% of these gases to assume their responsibilities. Dozens of residents in Sudan's war-torn country of Omdurman are suffering from the ailing healthcare system 5 months since a conflict broke out, leaving thousands of residents struggling to make ends meet. Marwa Blaiwer.
Citizens trapped in the city of Omdurman in a raging war between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army have been struggling to access medical care as health services continue to deteriorate.
I am not the only one suffering. Everyone is suffering with the medication and meeting with the doctors. The center is crowded. I've been here since 9 a.m. and I have just seen the doctor now. The center is crowded, and to find the medication, you need to search outside the center, and the transportation is difficult. People have no other solutions.
With a severe shortage of necessary medications, especially for the people with chronic diseases, some patients have suffered complications such as amputations.
The most critical issue we're facing is the shortage of medications, especially for those with chronic diseases like hypertension and diabetes. Because of the war, the medications are not available, and so the complications began to show, such as amputating limbs, which happened to a number of patients.
Insufficient medical supplies, including syringes and solutions, have also undermined laboratory producers and minor surgeries.
As you can see in the pharmacy, the medications are scarce, and the number of patients from May 22nd until now, September 4th, 2023, has exceeded 6,000 patients.
The almost 5-month war, which started on April 15, has devastated Sudan, deteriorating the healthcare system, creating hunger, destroying infrastructure, as well as killing and displacing thousands of civilians.
The situation in Palestine has escalated as Zionist occupation forces executed a forceful incursion into Jenin camp, where they surrounded a residential property. This operation involved the deployment of numerous military vehicles and resulted in intense armed clashes between the occupation forces and local Palestinian resistance fighters. Regrettably, during this incident, a young Palestinian lost his life due to gunfire from the Zionist forces. Tensions remain high in the region. And Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtaya has vehemently condemned the disturbing violations committed against the sanctity of Palestinian women during a military raid in Hebron, situated in the southern region of the occupied West Bank. The incident unfolded when approximately 50 male and female Zionist soldiers stormed the Al-Juni family residence on July the 10th. The Prime Minister's denunciation underscores the outrage and distress over the mistreatment of Palestinian civilians, particularly women, in such challenging circumstances.
These violations reflect the level of decay reached by the occupation's criminal practices against the Palestinian people, without the slightest regard for international laws and regulations. Violating the sanctity of our homes and harming our women is a provocative and disgraceful act that is only carried out by those devoid of morals and human values.
The new Iranian ambassador to Saudi Arabia and the new Saudi ambassador to Iran officially started their work as the two countries continue to mend ties. Last March, Riyadh and Tehran announced their agreement to resume diplomatic relations following Beijing brokered talks. After signing the deal, Saudi Arabia and Iran highlighted the need to respect each other's national sovereignty and refrain from interfering in internal affairs of one another. And the European Union's Enlargement Commission told Turkey on Wednesday to address issues around democracy and the rule of law if it wants to boost its drive to join the bloc, explaining that the accession negotiations are currently at a standstill. It is worth mentioning that Ankara secured a pledge from Brussels to resurrect stalled membership negotiations in exchange for lifting its blockade of Sweden's drive to join the NATO military alliance.
When it comes to Turkey as a candidate country, I think it is clear where we are now, as it was decided by the European Council in 2018. The negotiations for accession are at a standstill now, and for this to be remobilized, there are very clear criteria set out also by the European Council that would need to be addressed, and these criteria are related to democracy and rule of law. So my visit today should highlight that we continue to design this productive cooperation. And I think that this partnership has a huge potential.
And for his part, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan confirmed that he and the EU Enlargement Commissioner Olivier Varhelyi, they agreed to restart talks on the customs union, which aims to provide unhindered access of goods between the sides. Let's take a
Gümrük
listen.
Birliği konusunda da
We discussed what concrete steps could be taken regarding the customs union. We agree that negotiations to renew the agreement on that issue should restart as soon as possible. Delegations will start convening as of next week, and the efforts will pick up pace.
çalışmalar hız kazanacak.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived Wednesday to Kyiv. The trip, the third to the Ukrainian capital since the beginning of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, comes as a show of Washington's support to Ukraine. Blinken's visit is expected to include announcing new military aid of around $200 million. Another larger military assistance package is expected later this week.
I responded with all my sincerity that
I'm here first and foremost to demonstrate our ongoing and determined support for Ukraine as it deals with this aggression. We've seen good progress in the counteroffensive. It's very heartening. We want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs not only to succeed in the counteroffensive, but has what it needs for the long term to make sure that it has a strong deterrent, strong defense capacity, so that in the future, aggressions like this don't happen again. And we're also determined to continue to work with our partners as they build and rebuild a strong economy, a strong democracy, all of which is necessary to ensure that Ukraine not only survives, but it thrives in the future. And in that, Ukraine has a strong partner in the United States.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has praised the U.S. for their support, noting the unity of stances between Democrats and Republicans in the Congress when talking about Ukraine's conflict. Let's take a listen.
Thank you so much. We are really thankful to you. We are very thankful to White House, to President Biden. Please best regard to him from me. And we are thankful to bipartisan support to Congress, that you show great unity around Ukraine. You have different cases and in the United States, but when we feel and when we speak about Ukraine, you're always together. Thanks so much.
Still in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has strongly denounced a recent Russian attack in eastern Ukraine that resulted in the tragic loss of at least 16 lives. Speaking during a joint news conference with the Prime Minister of Denmark, Zelensky emphasized that this assault was a response to Ukrainian forces' advancements on the battlefield, highlighting that Russians frequently target civilians and civilian infrastructure in response to positive offensive steps by Ukrainian defense forces.
We understand what they are doing. They did the same in the past. Whenever there is any positive offensive step by Ukrainian defense forces, Russians target civilians and civilian infrastructure, wherever their missiles or artillery can reach. We know that area very well. We understand that they delivered a deliberate strike. As of now, according to the information I have, it won't probably be accurate because the operation is underway there. There are 16 dead and 20 wounded.
And that's all for tonight's edition. If you missed any part of the broadcast, you can visit our websites and our social media platforms. We meet you tomorrow for more news and updates.